Okay, listeners, we're having a meeting after the meeting about school funding, and asked Dan if we could just hit record real quick again. So, Dan, let's talk about there's an image of these buckets, and you were going to go into talking about save.
Yeah, so penny sales tax money, what's called SAVE, it's an acronym SAVE, and don't put me on the spot right now of actually what that acronym means, but basically it's penny sales tax dollars that schools they generate funding for just various building projects. And you can borrow against that money to do construction projects. And right now we have done so with our Drexler Middle School project and using SAVE dollars to uh, update, renovate, and do what we need to do to serve all of our kids at Drexler Middle School. I think the big thing to think about within these buckets when you look at this visual is there's different funding coming from different sources, and it is very restrictive of where you can spend that money.
Hmm.
One, how that bucket, so to speak, is generated, and then how you can spend the money within that bucket. We had talked about that in our school improvement advisory committee meeting of just these leaders within our school communities. And, it was kind of an epiphany of most people do not understand that. And when they do start to understand, there's just some stronger continuity and just better understanding of like, wow, your hands are actually a little bit tied with what you can do here or what you can't do. And
Hmm.
all of that is governed by Iowa code, and it is very prescriptive of how you can fill that bucket and how you can spend that bucket. So it's an interesting concept that we could talk about for a long time, but the general sense when you see that image, it starts to make a little bit more sense of how the school funding formula works.
And I know this image really changed how I understood the concept of school funding. And the people I carpooled with, we were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And since then, it's really affected how I think about the work you guys have to do. Like, especially, for example, with gas prices rising, like that for a 555 square mile district, filling those buses with diesel is no small cost. And then you add those increases, but you're funding, like you have a specific bucket, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, that can be pulled from, correct?
Different expenditures have to come from a certain fund. And again, those funds are generated by various things. Could be property tax, it could be state aid, it could be sales tax, it could be bond proceeds, it could be fundraising if you're talking about the student activity fund or the nutrition fund, thinking about that comes from federal funding. So there's these different things, these different buckets of how they are generated and what you can spend on. But you're exactly right. When you're talking about fuel cost, what's going on in the world definitely is going to dictate the amount of money that we're spending. And when you're running 33 bus routes in the morning and you're running 33 bus routes in the afternoon and you're running an activity route, that is going to have a significant impact on a school district. So
Hmm.
it it just leads to better understanding and deeper conversation to understand what we can do and what we can't do.
Well, thanks for hopping back on so that we could unpack this graphic a little bit more.
No problem.